Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Serpico, a film that is not normally in my viewing wheelhouse, but I'm to try as best as I can to be more open-minded, and in possibly my own detriment still, to give some variety to this channel. I had gone on to, of course, watch a random episode of Blue Bloods because it's very casually in the background while I'm going on my tablet, watching normally whatever I want to watch. I had heard them go on and reference this said film, so I decided, like, well, this is the random way of which that is to always be me finding certain projects instead of having to do hours and hours of research to find certain things. So, going into this film, I was to be in awe of this story. There's some aspects of it that I can relate to, not bullets flying, not life and death situations at every second of my day, and to not be at all a first responder in my life, because firefighters, paramedics, or cops have never been something that I've gone on to be myself. But I can still relate to being in dangerous environments, as well as also to be in places that drive you completely crazy. You don't sleep, you don't really eat, like, it's just you needing to do a job that you completely hate, but there's nowhere else for you to go. And when you go on, you can hope that you can change your stars and get a completely different career. And then you get an interview, they immediately say, yeah, you don't have any prior experience to doing this, so we're not going to hire you. And I'm like, well, that was a great waste of time, because, yeah, like, they want to go on and have somebody with experience already what they're doing, so they don't have to train you. That's the modern day realism of careers nowadays. So we go on to a movie called Serpico. Serpico gives us a story about a man who is to graduate from the police academy to transition to a police station. Eventually, when he comes to the police station, he immediately gets taken advantage of. And then he goes on to find out, once he transitions from patrolman to then undercover cop, that eventually he will be partnered up with people that are to be shaking criminals down for money, because it seems that this police department has some thing going on with it where they're separating all this money between all these cops, so they can all get a pretty decent extra payday out of what all they're already doing. And Serpico is to be the only one that does not want to go on and take these payments. At one point, he ends up getting this $300 check, or this $300 bit of money off of this envelope that he has no idea what it's about. So he goes on and takes that thing and just gives it to his superior and walks off. So Serpico goes on, and further and further, the more that he just refuses to take this money, people keep wanting to give it to him, and he just doesn't want it. He has nothing in his life that would make him need this extra money compared to everyone else. Like, he is to be not tempted. And that's also just his moral stance. So, further and further, as Serpico doesn't take this money, the cops that are to either be partnered with him or in his division or in his police station, whichever, further and further do not trust him. And that makes for some ugly situations, which then force Serpico to speak to his superiors about what's going on, because his life is being put at risk. and further of them going on and stalling this eventual investigation or internal investigation, because there is no, I guess, internal investigation at this time period of police departments and whatever have you. There's no IA, there's no FBI, CIA, whichever. There is no certain levels of certain governmental departments of whichever that would probably go on and more specifically deal with this. So, we go on to have Serpico be the one who's basically going to eventually become the face of this whole thing. And once people find that out and they start calling him a rat and they start thinking that he always has a wire on him and they're always patting him down, that's when Serpico is trying to push as much as possible to get this story out there. Regardless of him getting roadblocks everywhere he goes, he finally is to figure out some frickin' way to get this story out there so it will stop. So he will go on and get a sigh of relief that his life is not at risk. But still, he'll get a bullet in the face. And even after he goes on and gets a bullet in the face, he gets these gift cards. These gift cards that threaten his life. That hope he dies. And you would think at that freaking point that Serpico would really be second guessing his life choices. That really he's like, what am I doing at this point? Because yeah, like, he's going to die and he's doing a job that is not to really, most of the point, have his back. If anything, yeah, they're wanting him dead so that way they can get rid of him. And I've been in certain careers where, like, I've lessened the trust of other coworkers, but I still have to work with them. Even though I know that they're not going to do anything. Again, a life of a career of just, like, working with any number of people that honestly don't want to do the job that you're having to need to do because you can't do anything else. So, we go on to have this story by me, not only with its relatability, but also with the fact that this is a very heartbreaking tale. Serpico goes on and is to not really have much of a life beyond his career, because whenever he is to go on and have girlfriends, they can't stand the life they're living with Serpico because of how just, like, he's just a zombie. He's catatonic. He can't sleep. He is always just talking about the job, and the job just really is not going well, and he hates it, but he just keeps wanting to do it. And also, he can't do anything else. No matter where he transitions from, there's always going to be the place where he transitions from that still does the exact same thing. It's the never-ending story. So, Serpico goes on to eventually have what I think is to be the best possible ending here, as well as also come to find out what happens with this character by the end of the story, with its telling us where he ended up, which is great. So, I hope best for him. So, with that said, there are certain parts of this movie where there is a little bit of Spanish speaking between Serpico and his mother, or Serpico going into this seemingly Spanish class. And so those points are Serpico and his mother. The mother goes on and tells Serpico that he is to have some money set aside for furniture and a place to live, because his mother has been saving up for when he's to go on leave the nest, which was really nice. It's very beautiful. I love that part of that film. Also, there is to go on and be the moment in the movie where Serpico is in this Spanish speaking class, and we have the speaker who the only thing I got out of it was him talking about Don Quixote. I'm like, well, Don Quixote is a play of sorts, and I remember that story very well. It's a story where a guy goes on and is to be dating a prostitute, and he is to probably go on. I think, like, if anything, Quantum Leap goes on and is to talk about the episode, or is to talk about the Don Quixote thing. So you can, of course, go on and find out through that bit of episode what kind of happens in Don Quixote. But yeah, let's go on and let's go into full on spoilers about this movie. Let's break it all down. Comparison would have me say that Serpico does go on and feel quite like the Charlize Theron movie North Country, which will have female characters making their way into working at a very specific job that they find that they are being harassed by men. And eventually also guys will come up and say they've been harassed also. And eventually this will lead to a whole like trial of sorts, and eventually that plays out the way it does. And like that could be immediately in my mind a comparison. Then of course I would go with like Batman Begins. Like Gordon is going on being the only cop that doesn't want a taste of delicious money. So he goes on and is to have certain cops say that he's a rat, and Gordon's like, well, there's no one to rat to in a city this bad. So that's stuff that I can only really reference from because that's the only real knowledge of real movies of which that I can have to any kind of mashing with this. But those are to be much more stories of anything that I can just pull from. There probably also is like the Nick Nolte Shaquille O'Neal story, where we come to find that Nick Nolte is to be paying these certain college athletes to just play college ball, and that in some ways can go on and feel quasi in a ballpark of this also. But again, for most of these, like we could probably say that like life or death, or it's a fictional thing, or whatever, or it is a real story. But yeah, it's just like it's not exactly the same, and whatever. So it is what it is. So now go on and let's talk about the, of course, future reviews. I am to go on and find while talking to my ma about a film called Eyes of Lord Mars. This seems to be a Tommy Lee Jones film. I've never heard of it in my life up until just recently. And it seems to have a normal theme of a person who is to see visions, as well as also she is a woman that has a camera with her at all times. From what I've seen through certain pictures of this, so I was to go on and find it to be like, okay, interesting enough. Let's check this out. Because while I was talking with my ma, I was to go on and try to see if there's any more things that I could try to find people that have these visions, psychic abilities, stuff like that. Because again, I like to try to keep putting that back into the channel at some point, just because it's just interesting ideas of a movie. So with that said, also, probably in December, I probably want to go on and probably do some more like toy stuff, like kind of horror toy stuff. I think that's probably going to end up what's going to go on in December. Also, when it comes down to probably be Black Friday, I don't know what my schedule is going to be like, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to exactly have time to post on that day. Simply because I'm kind of looking at certain things to uh, shop around for certain things, and maybe I don't know if I'm going to be able to exactly take the time to also do a review on that day, or maybe I may not go on at all, have a a day for that to specifically review, and I'll maybe be doing other things. I have no idea. If anything, yeah, like maybe even during Thanksgiving, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. If anything, these holidays are coming up soon, so that's why I am to state to you that I'm going to try to do my best to keep trying to do reviews, but freaking holidays are coming up. I don't have the ability to quite easily have a backlog of certain videos right now. I don't have anything to just uh, subdue and quickly or do projects on. I just can't. It's just not my easy thing of, oh yeah, just double up and just do these projects. No, I can barely do one project, let alone yeah, like so I have a tough enough time doing one video that takes 2 days to do at some points right now. So yeah, like it's very hard for me to also justify uh, trying to do more just that way it can make up for that loss of day or whatever. So it is what it is. So let's go on and let's get into the full on breakdown of this film. I appreciate anybody going on and watching this because I know that a lot of people will probably briefly check this out and then walk away. A lot of people can go on and just be fascinated that this is an Al Pacino movie and they want to check it out just because they have no idea what this movie is, and that's understandable. Any realm of which that can go on and get a click on this view of a video, like I do appreciate it. Because at the end of the day, it does help the channel out. So, with that said, let's go on into full-on breakdown, cast list, whatever, and do this review right. Thank you for going on and watching this because you may just want to just walk off at this point, which is completely okay. Because at the end of the day, you've probably been watching this for X number of minutes or seconds or whatever anyways. So, it is what it is. Thank you for doing so. And there's been quite a bit of people that had gone on to actually watch a good length of one of my past videos that I've gone on to do, so I do appreciate that also. Like, it's not just me trying to manipulate people and clickbait people into all this stuff. Like, I'm just trying to just be consistent here, to just try to put something out. And I hope people will go on and somehow like those some things. With that said, let's pause here. All right, the beginning of this tale gives us Serpico in the back of a cop car. The cops within this cop car are calling to let a hospital know that there is to be a police officer who is wounded, and they're going to bring him in. We have a number of people who, as soon as that is going over the radio, things start to get passed over from different precincts, from different people. And eventually this all leads to eventually Chief Green getting a phone call, and he finds out that Serpico is shot. Chief Green gets out of his bed and makes his way to the hospital to see Serpico. As well as also we come to find that there is a number of cop cars and a number of cars that are all making their way to this hospital, really cluttering up this hospital with everybody making their way there to see Serpico. So it is also very ironic that people are going out of the way to do this, because we would go on to find that Serpico had gone on through a number of different transitional precincts and what have you. Plus, also, he wasn't liked by a number of people as well. So Serpico goes on and has his clothes being cut into, and also his necklace being cut away from him, which I'm not quite sure why they had to cut the necklace. Like, did they have to do an X-ray? Like, an MRI? Like, but anyways, they cut his necklace. So the next thing we see is we realize that we have to go back to the beginning of this story, because like the opening of this is like, wait a minute, what? Like, why is all of a sudden we're seeing this cop and he's shot in the face? Why are we going on and having this being the starting thing? No, we're going to start from the beginning here. Because this is going to go on and be like how the Ben Affleck film Daredevil was, where as Ben Affleck's character is to realize that he's dying, that he's going to flash back to the very beginning. So Serpico goes on and he graduates the police academy, and he has this speaker that is going on and calling out his name for him to, of course, graduate this thing. Chief Green makes his way into the hospital and goes on to tell some patrolmen that they need to have certain patrolmen kind of watching over Serpico's room 24/7 because, yeah, if anything, like Chief Green is trying to find the best possible men that will watch over Serpico because, of course, Chief Green is to be worried about not only anyone and their brother coming after Serpico. So yeah, it's not just like, oh, is the criminal gonna come back? No, it's like even if other cops are gonna try to snuff out Serpico because he's so close to dead anyways. So it's a precautionary measure. So Chief Green goes on to look at Serpico as nurses are trying to keep him alive. And Chief Green goes on to hold the hand of Serpico as all the other doctors seem to distance themselves away from that room. Serpico goes on, after he graduates from the police academy, to take a picture with his family. And he thrusts his hat from behind him and is like, yeah, look at me, yeah. And goes on and has a picture being taken with his family. It's nice. So Serpico goes on to make his way into the police station. He thrusts his identity and says that he's Patrolman Serpico. And so the clerk that is behind the desk here goes on to tell Serpico to go upstairs for roll call. So Serpico goes on and talks to a patrolman, and he tells him, because Serpico is checking in, that where Serpico is going to be scheduled, and also to grab a locker. And good luck to him. So Serpico goes on to eventually find a policeman hat and doesn't quite have exactly the dress blues yet. So he eventually will go on, he will get those. So eventually, like, for the beginnings of this, he'll just have like this pea coat that it looks like a police uniform because he doesn't physically have one at his disposal. Because again, they're going to have to like size him up and get the right uniform for him. So, and they have to like special order it and whatever. So Serpico goes on to a room, and we would of course have a patrolman that is to introduce the now new uh, guys like Serpico and whoever else is new that is in the same kind of predicament, because there's a guy that also is wearing flannel along next side Serpico. So Serpico will go on and look to see who he's going to be partnered up with, this patrolman. And so the two of them go on and they make their way to this diner, this restaurant. And come to find out, when they make their way into this restaurant, they'll come to find that their food is going to be for free when they order it, because the policemen, like, if anything, it's a nice gesture. So the only problem with that is when they order food and and the guy goes on and says, "Hey, do you want some creamed chicken?" And we have Serpico that's like, "No, no, no, I actually want to go on and have roast beef on roll." When Serpico does go on and get his meal, he realizes that it's all fat. And so Serpico goes on to say to his partner, Palouse, he's like, "Hey, this is all fat in this food." And Palouse is like, "Well, hey, like, it was all free, so if anything, like, you kind of get what you get from this guy." It's like, well, like, what if I was just to give him money? Would he go on and then give me, like, a more healthier meal? And Palouse tells him, like, "Dude, yeah, this guy just goes on and gives you what you're gonna give you. So, like you're just forced to, like, just take this and eat it." So there's nothing that it seems that Serpico can do about it. So if anything, like, that is immediately the very first gripe. So we now have Serpico with now another patrolman, and they're patrolling at night. They go on and they make their way to a call going on at night. Come to find out, there is an area where there is a number of men that are all gathered together, and they are having their way with a woman. And this, of course, is to be having their way with her in a very intimate matter of sorts, which is to say that she's really just being taken advantage of. Any number of things that I don't want to actually say what they say in this movie of what this actually is, because I just try to avoid it because I don't like saying that word either. So the patrolmen make their way around this building to come to find that there are men gathered around this woman, and one of them is to go on and have their pants down. And so when Serpico and other officer arrive, these men not only pull away from this woman, but then whip out a knife to tell these men, "Hey, put your guns down, don't try anything," all these kind of things to just tell them, like, "Well, hey, man, like, I have this knife, like, turn your light off," because again, they also don't want to be witnessed and seen by these men, so they can identify them. So what ends up happening is these men eventually go on and they scatter, and some of them get away. But Serpico does go on and find one of them, thrust them to the ground, and arrest them. We go on and we have the woman who is to make her statement, and eventually the aftermath of that is like, man, she's going to be the best witness we probably ever had. And she is to go on and mention how things were thrusted into her mouth, that she had been held down, and they said that they were going to kill her. So they go on and they put a cloth over her, as it seems that they always do in all these situations when we have at, like, the end of the movie where somebody's in an ambulance and they have these sheets over them, and like, I guess because they've been through such a traumatic experience that maybe they need a cloth to comfort them. Uh, Logically, I never quite understood that in every single one of those movies, but maybe in this situation with this girl to have ripped away her clothing the way it has, like, I guess the cloth would make a lot of sense to just kind of cover her up to protect her her privacy or her innocence, as well as also maybe it's just because of having that blanket on them is to just be comforting, as well as also to hide any wounds or anything that they were to go on and have. Um, to maybe like have some kind of weird censorship of life. I don't know. Um, I any number of things could be a possibility here. I'm just trying to spitball here and try to figure this out. So one of the policewoman is one of the patrolmen is going and ask if this girl wants a stretcher. She refuses, so they walk her out. So the next thing we see is a detective taking a taking the guy that was booked, a guy who I believe goes by the name Joey here. As I was to very much try to look into some of these names here, this detective goes on and takes Joey and brings him into an interrogation room, kicks him in the nuts. The guy drops to the ground, and we'll start to find that the detective starts to be working on this guy and just starts beating him up. The detective turns to Serpico and asks, "Hey, you want a piece of this?" And Serpico is saying, of course, no. He leaves the room. The next thing we come to find is a number of people who are getting arrested and transferred, being all kind of lined up one by one to be cuffed together and are to be taken away. Serpico goes on and finds Joey in this line of people and uncuffs him and tells him, "Hey, how about you and me talk?" So Serpico goes on and it's realized that the other detective had gotten nothing from him. So Serpico wants to find the other guys involved in this case. So Serpico is going to go on and say, "Hey, yeah, I know that guy really beat you up. I'm going to go on and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go on and you and me are going to go to this area over here and just have a cup of coffee. If you run away from me, you're going to regret it. But if anything, we're going to go over here and we're just going to talk." So Serpico goes on and talks to Joey within this area, within this place, and is to convince him, "Hey, man, you were a guy that was just there. If anything, like other people had gone on and done more heinous things, and you're gonna go down for this. You're gonna go down for a number of crimes, kidnapping, and anything else. There's a huge number of things that Serpico states here. That this guy's gonna go away for a long time." So Serpico goes to tell Joey, like, "You know what? If you give up these other guys, maybe there's a chance that we can lessen your sentence. Maybe there's also a way that, yeah, like these guys will go on and see prison time also, that you won't have to do this alone." So Joey does go on and give up these guys, and Serpico goes on to find them at this basketball court. Serpico goes on to make a phone call to these detectives. I believe one of them is McCoy. Serpico goes on and says that he is to find the other men that were involved in that case, and that the longer and longer that they wait to not bring these people in, that like he'll lose them. And the officer, or the guy that's answering this phone call, is to state that, well, the guy who's actually working on the case is not here right now. So if anything, he'll be back in a couple days. So Serpico is like, well, like, then I'm just going to have to act. Serpico goes on and is to be wearing uh, undercover kind of clothes to disguise himself in this area. Goes on to find the two men, whips out a gun, and says that they're under arrest. Serpico goes on, takes in the men, and is to immediately have the detectives grabbing paperwork and filling out the report as if they have made the bust. And Serpico is like, well, hey, what are you doing? Like, I did all the work. I broke my ass. Like, you're not going to go on. You're not going to take this collar from me. And the guy's like, well, like, if anything, like, well, like, if anything, you need to realize that uh, we'll give you an assist on the rest, but we're going to take this arrest. And Serpico is like, wow, okay. So, because if anything, they're going on and saying that, like, this guy is lucky that he won't get some kind of reprimand or get in trouble because what he did. So, the next thing we see here is Serpico making his way through town. There seems to be some kids that are playing with this fire hydrant as the water is being hugely sprayed out here. Serpico is just looking at the kids and having fun, so he's having fun. Like, there is parts about this where, like, I can just see, like, Al Pacino just, when he's doing these movies, like, how at some points fun he can have, and it just maybe being some random thing that ends up occurring at some parts of these towns that Al Pacino just works with and just does something with. Or they worked it into the movie, and so, like, Al Pacino is just really having fun here, which is just really nice. I really like these pieces where it's not all just doom and gloom, and you can really see where Al Pacino has like a really good like I wish Al would have gone on and done a lot more comedies because I think he would have been really good at it also. Uh there are from time to time him doing that, but most of the time he ends up playing these characters where he's screaming and yelling and he's in the worst possible scenario that he could possibly be in, or he always plays cops films, which I've gone on to see at some certain points him doing these detective movies and whatever and stuff like insomnias and stuff like. So I've obviously seen stuff like Insomnia because Robin Williams and Al Pacino, and I was interested in that. Anyways, they kind of clickbaited into me because of the cast list. So to change it up and not say Serpico so often, I'm probably going to say either Frank or Paco here to try to not have it be repetitiously that I'm saying the same name over and over and over again, because it could probably be very annoying to people. So Paco makes his way into this shoe service and is talking with a guy named Pasquale. The two of them are talking here, and Pasquale wanted to invite Frank to his place because he was to also have a woman for him there named Marianne. Serpico is to go on and state that he does not want to end up with Marianne because Marianne has a family that is all cops. And Paco goes on to very much be having a career that he is with cops all the time. So if anything, he doesn't want to be ending up with a woman that has family members that are also cops. Like he just doesn't want to deal with it. So still Pasquale is wanting Serpico to just come to dinner, and Paco does go on and agree to it, but he's like, but hey, but that Marianne thing, no. And Pasquale's like, okay, all right, just come to dinner. Just come on. So just nice people. So The next thing after this is we go on to find that there's some time passing. How we can tell that some time is passing is because Serpico is to go on and grow a mustache and grow his hair longer. And at some certain points, people are to go on and ridicule Paco for having said long hair and mustache. And Paco is to immediately tell people what's the problem. Like, if anything, like, I don't think us as police officers need to look like it. We don't need to be clean shaven. We don't need to have short hair because, if anything, that'll make us stick out like a sore thumb. And if anything, it's to probably go on and make them more relatable to anybody. So, and eventually, Serpico tells people that when they call him out on it. So, Serpico is going on and looking through uh, a catalog here. And Bardo off in the distance is to make fun of Serpico for how in depth he's going on and looking through all this stuff. And Serpico is stating how he's like wasting time going through all of that stuff when normally they would just go through a certain number of things and then that'd be it. And Serpico is like, Bardo, like, what are you like? You have to go and do this much research. You have to go on and you really have to define the perfect. So you, like, we have people that are like cutting corners, and Serpico is pissed about it. So the next thing we see is Serpico is starting to pack his stuff because he has enough money saved up to find a place. And here's where his ma comes in, and he lets him. She lets him know that she's been saving for a while for him to get his own place and furniture and stuff like that. So she'll hand him this. I think it's like a checkbook or something. It's some book that goes on to state how much money she saved up, and hands this to him. And Serpico's like, man, hugs her, and so the next thing we see here is Serpico finding a place and is moving in, and right next to that, there all of a sudden is to be these two people that are just trying to get rid of these puppies. Paco goes on to make their way over there because why wouldn't anybody love a dog? And it seems that these people are willing to just give them away for free. And Paco's like, no, like, I'll pay for one of these dogs. Like, how much money you're willing to give me, or how much money can I give you to get one of these dogs? And the girl just says, well, $5. And Paco's like, okay, good enough. So he takes one of the dogs. He ends up calling one of the dogs Alfie. Isn't that nice? Kind of reminds me of the Jude Law movie, because that's the only thing that when I hear the word Alfie, that's what comes to mind. So Serpico takes Alfie into the house and gets him a bowl of water for him to drink from this pot. The next thing we see is Paco making his way to this class that is talking about Don Quixote. And when he leaves that class, he goes on to find a woman that he can talk to named Leslie. Come to find out, Leslie is to be a ballerina or to be a dancer, and eventually Paco, when finding out about Leslie, is to also take these dance classes and is to go on and find that it actually is to be very much a athletic endeavor where he can go on and get some exercise, which, hey, like, However anybody wants to go about doing anything, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, like that's cool that Serpico is willing to do ballet classes, and plus also to have seen the ballet and what have you. But uh, a number of people also will go on and see Serpico weird by him going on and actually talking about the ballet. But Serpico, live your freaking life, man. Live your life. So, plus this time period, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people could be weirded out by a number of things so freaking easily. So, it is what it is. Live your life, freaking Paco. You're a delicious man. Anyways, so Paco goes on to eventually tempt Leslie to get on a bike with him so the two of them can go about their days uh, of just getting to know one another. Leslie comes to find out that Paco has a gun on him. As at first, Paco ends up saying, "Oh, it's just a money purse." It's like, no, it's not a money purse. It's obviously a gun. Serpico tells Leslie here that he's like, "Hey, the reason why I have this gun is I'm a cop. Do you believe me?" And Leslie says no, she doesn't believe him, but it's true. Leslie takes Frank to this ballet, and afterwards, the two of them are outside of his place, and Leslie is just doing some ballet stuff. And Frank is honestly interested in how exactly she's to go on and do any of that stuff. So he tries to attempt it himself. And so the two of them are just kind of dancing in the sidewalk here. So Paco makes his way with a book in his hand, and Bardo calls him out on it, of like, "Hey man, what are you reading?" And Paco states that it's a ballet book, and Bardo thinks that it's a belly dancer book, and Paco's like, "No, no, no, ballet, ballet. You know, like one of these, like yeah." So Paco goes on to showcase to Bardo some dancing things and says that he's done some classes and that it is a good workout. And Paco also asks Bardo if he's ever gone on to watch or see the ballet. And Bardo's like, "Well, yeah, I have. Like not very good, but at least I've seen it." And Bardo, and so like the two of them are kind of having this rapport with one another. At least there is this exchange here where Bardo isn't gonna like rib into Paco for seeing the ballet. No, like if anything, like if they have common interests, yeah, you might as well share it. So it is kind of interesting here. So Paco does go on and is to showcase what he has learned in this ballet class, and off the distance we have a guy who I believe is Steiger or Steiger. I have no idea how this is pronounced because I'm not exactly familiar of this character, how briefly he is in this film. I'm gonna go with Steiger. Steger's in the background to have seen what exactly Paco was doing, and Steger, in his mind, has the accusation that Paco is probably gay. So, we furthermore have Serpico that makes his way into the bathroom, and there's a guy named Potts that is also in the bathroom as well, that is trying to be a peeping Tom and watching a woman in some window somewhere. And Serpico goes in the bathroom, and Potts is telling Serpico to turn the lights out so that way they can continue to peep on this girl. And Serpico is like, "Well, hey man, I came to the bathroom so I can read." So Serpico and Potts, they turn the lights off in the bathroom, and they get the binoculars out, and when Potts ends up handing Serpico the binoculars, Serpico cannot see anything and is asking Potts, "Hey man, what are you talking about?" Immediately when Potts takes the binoculars back, he realizes, "Oh man, like the woman had covered the blinds. Man, Serpico, like you have just ruined my day. Uh, you are some kind of jinx." So Steger turns back on the lights in the bathroom, and Serpico and Potts walk out of the bathroom. Steger stops specifically Paco, and it's to ask exactly what they're going on and doing. Serpico tries to convince Steger that all they were doing was peeping on somebody, and Steger thinks instead that Paco was blowing Potts, giving him a blowy, BJ, and that's what they were really doing here. And Paco was like, "Are you seriously thinking that that was all I was doing?" "No, I wasn't doing that at all." And the further and further disagreements are to happen between the two of them, eventually it just gets to the point to where Paco goes on and is to speak with Captain McLean. Captain McLean, it seems, is to be a very religious captain. At one point, McLean goes on and talks to Paco about, like, well, hey, like, are you a religious man, Paco? Are you a Catholic? And Paco's like, well, yeah, I've been baptized. So it immediately seems that Paco can find Captain McLean as a person that he can come to when he's having a problem. So eventually, Paco will continue to go to Captain McLean to try to tell him about what is all going on when things are going south in his precincts or south in his divisions, as far as uh, the shakedowns of money that these partners go into and all these just kind of underhanded things. And we would, of course, go on to have Serpico have this captain eventually tell him that he's going to the mayor and talking to him about all this stuff. And eventually, when they confront the mayor about this, the mayor goes on and says, like, well, maybe I've heard about this, maybe I haven't. Because really, for the mayor, he's just protecting himself from, like, also to just being like, well, hey, I can ignore whatever I want to. As well as also, uh, yeah, like, the less that certain people have to know, the more that they don't actually have to report anything. So the less they have to do. I have gone on in certain environments and had certain issues with coworkers, obviously, uh, and I would always get a eventual talk to them of update of like, well, hey, this has now been going on for this long now. What has actually changed? And like, oh, we're just gonna keep a report on them and this and that. And I'm like, well, this just continues to happen anyways. This has been going on for however long now. Like, it's not making this it's not making this area any better to exist in. Like, I get you guys have to have a paper trail of things, but like, come on, like, this is going to be a paper trail of a mile long. Like, like, I don't want people to lose their jobs, but also, like, I want my working environment to improve, not to go on and make it worse. So, plus also, it's not like when anybody either gets fired or somebody quits, it's not like all of a sudden people are going to get more money because of that happening. It's not like you're going to get a raise because you're short staffed. You're going to get paid the same, regardless of how lesser amount of people are in your division or in your department. That's how things just work. So really, for me, there's no benefit of anybody losing their job, but also if someone is not really benefiting your department, then why are they there? Also, it's just like you just have people that like you want to go on and be the person that like doesn't want to have any problems with anybody, and I try to be that person, and I try to I try to see where everybody's coming from, but to not complain about nobody, then you're just going to be miserable and you're going to be working at a place that you just don't want to be. Anyways, so we have Serpico that talks to this captain, and the captain goes on to say that Lieutenant Seeger, the guy that Serpico just talked to about the whole bathroom situation, he's not going to be filling any report out. If anything, there was just a misunderstanding there. And if anything, I guess the captain is going to realize that Seeger is probably just concerned of the image of this department. And so Paco was to mention how he's starting to more and more realize how long he's been here for, and how he's going on to realize that he's probably not going to go on and get eventually anywhere further than where he already is. There's a lot of people that go on and realize that they're never going to get a higher position in their career, even though they've been there for so long and they feel that they probably deserve it, that some places will go out of their way to find just some brand new person that has never done this position before and hand them that. And I am to just be baffled by it. It's like, why not just have the best experienced person get that certain position? Anyways, so eventually this is going to lead to Paco going and having a transfer. And so Paco is to say, it's like, well, hey, I don't want to go back to just being in my uniform. Like, I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but just like there's nowhere to go where I am at. So the captain goes on and hands Paco this weekend retreat, and that's where he goes on and asks Serpico about if he's Catholic or not. And Paco mentions like, well, yeah, I was baptized. So I don't know why that whole weekend retreat thing meant anything in this movie, but it exists there. So the next thing we see is Paco making now with Alfie, that is to really show us that this dog is way more bigger and there has been a lot more time that has passed in the story here, and Paco is to look very much different. Longer hair, different mustache, what have you. So it's more of like a handlebar mustache than just a normal mustache. So there's a neighbor that goes on and immediately is to be seemingly like kissing on Paco and being questionably intimate, to where Leslie is like looking at Paco like, hey, what about that woman? Like, why was she just kissing on you and whatever? And Paco tells Leslie, it's like, yeah, that woman's weird. So she's a crazy girl. So Leslie comes to find that this woman had called uh, Serpico Paco. It's like, well, hey, why did she call you that? And Serpico states that, well, like a lot of my friends, they call me Paco. And Leslie's like, well, can I call you Paco then? And Serpico's like, sure, yeah, whatever. So the next thing we see is Serpico and Leslie making their way to this get together with Leslie's friends. Leslie goes on to say to these friends at some certain point that Paco is a cop, and they say, oh, that's really nice. Or also, certain people go on and immediately, once they hear that, walk away from Paco. Not all of them are comfortable hearing that this guy is a cop for whatever reasons. So, Paco wants to go on and win Leslie's friends over, and eventually he'll go on and meet with them individually and start talking to them and eventually win them over. But Paco goes on to tell Leslie to not tell every one of her friends that he is a cop because he wants to tell them in his own way, or to probably not tell them at all, because feasibly, with Paco being an undercover cop, you probably don't want everybody in the world knowing that you are a cop, because you never know who you're going to bump into. So, let me pause here for a second. So Paco speaks with one of Leslie's friends, and one of the Leslie friends mentioned to Paco that it's like, hey man, this girl, she likes to go on and she likes to date intellectuals, and she's a mind effer. And Paco is like, well, that's good because I'm a smart guy. All right, that tells me a lot about the people that she chooses to date. So also, uh, Paco will go on to talk to another friend, and they'll go on to talk about the appreciation of clarity and and uh, his sheepdog, and how it seems that everyone in his family has ever had some kind of sheepdog, and he goes on to make a joke about that. So Paco is going to go on and win over every one of Leslie's friends, and then Paco goes back to start dancing with Leslie, and Leslie states to Paco, it's like, man, all of my friends, they love you, and Paco is like, well, yeah, like I've definitely like won them all over. So we now see Paco, and he's wearing a sweet hat, just a sweet hat. Man, I wish I had a hat like that. Just freaking awesome. So Paco comes in, puts his badge on the police station, and they immediately go on and they tell him that he needs to cut his hair and shave his mustache, and to see Captain Tolkien. So Serpico makes his way to the captain, and uh, of course, here's where Serpico goes on to explain. It's like, well, hey, like, if we're to go on and be undercover cops, should we look like we're criminals? Like, instead of looking clean shaven and clean cutted and whatever, like, it makes us have a better disguise. And and Serpico makes the joke about like, well, hey, like, you have people that are wearing black shoes with white socks. It like it sticks out. So the captain starts laughing, and it's like, you know what? Like, go on. Yeah, you keep your clothes and your mustache. Uh, if anything, I'd like to have you patrol in your own car and wear whatever you want. So Serpico is going on and stating that he's bucking for detective because Serpico is going to have the agenda of trying to get to this gold shield. Within watching Blue Bloods, I would go on to see that certain patrolmen from time to time would do these certain undercover jobs, but still would not get the exact title of detective. Like they, at a lot of times, would go on and be at some points in and out because some of these undercover jobs or be kind of like freelance opportunities that only last a certain shelf life. So now we transition to Serpico in these overalls, and he is to go on and spot that there is a home that some guy is stealing stuff from. So Serpico goes on to chase after this guy, hunts him down, and after all this running upstairs and all these things, we eventually have Serpico grab this guy, arrest him, and there are also to be patrolmen that are nearby to stop this guy from running around, as well as also to just see a man with a gun on him. So the patrolmen whip their guns out and start blasting, not knowing that it's Serpico with this gun on him. So Serpico hits the deck, trying to keep this arrested man not only safe, but also to have him be able to book this guy. And there are bullets flying everywhere. There are windshields that are broken. There is a number of things that are being broken. So Serpico is to try as best as he can to shout out to the patrolman that he's a cop. He's to thrust his badge out because otherwise he's trying to avoid them getting him killed by their own bullets. So the patrolman goes on to speak with Paco and says, "Hey, I didn't know. I didn't know you were an undercover cop. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't notice you." And so, and Paco says, "It's like, hey, man, you fire without a warning shot? Like, come on." So, like, do you have any brains in your head? So, Paco goes on and thrusts his head to a wall because for how much he almost bought it. And he goes on to say, it's like, well, hey, if I'm gonna if I'm gonna buy it, it's definitely not gonna be from you. So meaning that if I'm gonna get shot by anybody, it's not gonna be by you. So as Paco goes on and puts the cuffs on this man, we have the patrolman coming back in and saying, yeah, like with all this damage that I had caused, how about you go on and you give me this collar? Because like I'll have to go on and fill out a mountain of paperwork and have nothing to show for it. And at first, Frank wants to refuse. He wants to go on and say, like, give up my collar? No. Uh, but eventually, Serpico does give in and is to say, hey, sure. Okay. Only if you tell Token I gave it to you. For the captain to have knowledge that this guy had, of course, done the collar and he gave it to him. So, like, as a show is for a show of good faith, even though this guy tried to kill him, he's willing to give up the collar. because he's a nice guy. So the next thing we see is Serpico and eventually a guy named Bob in a room full of other officers, and they're passing around this sample of Mary Jane, of the weed, of the pot, of the ooey. Yeah, whatever. And people are going on and taking a hit of it so that way they know what it feels like. And Serpico and Bob are sitting next to one another. We'll eventually come to find that these two guys are like minded people, and that eventually they'll be in a subway, and Bob is trying to get some kind of vending machine to give him something, but he realizes that this vending machine is so freaking old that he doesn't know how it works. They're trying to figure out, they're also freaking high. And so Bob is turning to Serpico like, well, hey man, like you and me, we're both cops. So if anything, like how about you and I at some point we partner up together and we get into the Batmobile and we bust everybody. And like that is a really nice pipe dream, but if anything, uh Bob is to mention how he has just a lot of pull, how he is to know people. And eventually, when Serpico goes to Bob, because supposedly he knows people, eventually Serpico is to come to find out that the people that he goes with Bob with, because he knows them, they don't really get him anywhere. To where eventually Serpico will end up getting upset with Bob because the more people that both of them go to, the more that nothing ends up getting done, and more people just know about their problems, and the more that Serpico's life will eventually be on the line. So, but if anything, a friendship is to be made here. And plus, also, Bob is to mention how he is to uh, be on a special assignment with the mayor's department. And it's to be with some detective squad. So, and immediately Serpico has realized, like, well, hey, that's Gold Shield territory. And Bob was like, yeah. So, and Serpico has realized how unfair that is. But still, it's like, at least Bob is even willing to take the time to talk to Serpico uh, and even if they're at different parts of life, it's like Bob is wanting to entrust in Serpico, and Serpico the same with Bob. Anyways, pushing on here. So here's the first time where Serpico is to have relationship problems. Leslie is to go on and open up to Serpico while they're having a bit of bath together, so you're seeing a bit of skin here, a little bit. And because I always have to go on and say that at some points in movies. Where does the skin? Leslie is going on and talking to Serpico and mentioning to him about how there's a chance for her to go on and find some other guy to marry instead of Paco. And so Leslie is asking Paco, it's like, well, hey, where is this relationship going? Because if it's not going fairly soon for us to get married, I can go on and just marry some other guy. And Leslie is really just asking Paco, it's like, hey, are you going to marry me or not? Because if not, then I'm going to move on. Frank realizes that that he doesn't quite know if he's going to marry this girl. So ultimately, he goes on and like, well, hey, can I at least come to the wedding? Yeah, because I guess Paco can't definitively give her that answer right now. So the next thing we see is that Paco, it seems, is at another division. He's in another area. More than likely, I think the reason why he's transitioning so often beyond his problems that he's already to go on and have is simply because he would go on and consistently find that he's going nowhere in his jobs. So he consistently goes from place to place to place to try to see if there is going to be an easier way for him to go on and get that gold detective badge. So he hopes that he goes on and transitions from these places so that way they can get better, and so that way he can go on and get that gold badge quicker. Uh, but eventually, when he gets the gold badge, he wouldn't even want it at that point. That's how uh, things are to, of course, make their way into a career life. Like, there was a part of me where I was to be the only one that applied for a certain position, and I was to go on and just be like, well, yeah, like, I'm the only one who's applied for this. Like, I should be just easily to be the one getting this. Like, unless they were to go on and find somebody out somewhere who has never done this job and they just give them this position. Like, I should be a surefire in to get this finally because I've been here for so long. And then in turn, they go on and they don't want to give the position to me and they want to make me sweat it. And then I'm just like, at that point, I don't even want it anymore. Because they go on and they tell me, it's like, well, like, if anything, there's just certain things that makes us not want to quite give you this position yet. So I'm just go on and say, it's like, well, you're going to give it to me inevitably. There's no one else that's going to be applying for this. You're not going to be interviewing anybody for this. So I should be getting this job at this point. I've been here for too long. How about just give me this? Because it was just a full-time position in the area that I've been working full-time in regardless, which I shouldn't have been, but I was doing it anyways because they only had certain people available. So I was doing the hours already. They should have been giving me that, but they try to figure out a way to not give it to me and make me sweat it out. So I'm like, you know what? I don't really want this job anymore. At this point, I don't want this position. So I was to go on and uh, just be like, well, hey, if I get it, if I get it, I don't care anymore. Like, you have kind of ruined this position for me. So, and I really wanted to try as best I could to be a nice guy, but ultimately I'm just like, this just feels like all kinds of wrong. And that's when I would just get out of this job and find other things that are just to be the exact same kind of career and the exact same thing I was doing before. And just my mental health was just not going very well. So, a man by the name of Charlie goes on to talk to Paco and tells him about, hey man, all you need to do is from time to time book a couple of hookers, and if anything, like, you'll be in the clear, you'll keep your job. And here's where Paco goes on and makes his way to have this patrolman give him this envelope that has $300 in it. And Paco asks the patrolman, hey, where did this letter come from? And it came from supposedly Joyce Max. So Paco opens it and it has $300 in it. Paco looks at this envelope long and hard, puts it in a book, and then makes a phone call. But then realizes that he probably should make this phone call in his home because he's paranoid, so he goes to a phone booth. He goes on to call Bob, goes on and tells him about the envelope, and eventually this envelope is to be brought up to a a higher ranking cop. So both Bob and Paco talk to this higher ranking cop to get a consultation of what they should actually do. And eventually the person goes on and tells them uh, that this seems to have been a common practice from the bad old days that has kind of resurfaced here. And there are two alternatives for them to go on and do here. And it's like, okay, what is the alternatives? So one of them is to commission an investigation, and this will be dragged into a grand jury. And of course, it's like, okay, what is the other alternative besides that? And the higher ranking authority goes on and tells them, forget it. And so Paco is like, well, what do I do with this envelope then? Because I'm probably going to end up just forgetting this. So Paco goes on, hits the heavy bag, contemplates this, sees a guy who's doing a bench press, who is Charlie, and man, this bench press has seen better days. This bench press is just clearly just a bunch of chunking of wood that they just thrusted together. Oh my god, that looks so dangerous. So dangerous. So Paco hands Charlie this envelope with this money, and he goes on to tell him, hey, somebody handed me this, I don't want it, so you take it. And then he disappears, goes back to his house. So Paco is at his house, he's listening to music, trying to calm his mind, and trying to just have a nice day off. All of a sudden, off in the distance, he goes on and he sees a girl named, I believe it's Lori, because that's the only female name that I could find on here. And I think when I was to go on and start looking through cast stuff, that's what I found. Yes, Lori. So Lori is going on and asking Paco about the music choice that he's playing, and eventually Paco is to try to get the interest of Lori of getting with her. So Paco ends up asking Lori, it's like, well, hey, like, do you love my garden? And Lori's like, well, yeah, I love your garden. And Paco's like, well, hey, if you love my garden, you have to love the man that has the garden. And Lori has a good bit of laugh, and then she walks off. So, because also Paco is trying to invite Lori closer so that way she can listen to music also. And Lori just won't bite. She won't go on and won't do it. So, because if anything, she's due at the hospital very least soon because I guess she works there. We never actually see her actually be involved in the hospital, but I guess she works there. So, and it's also kind of funny how Paco says, "Hey, why not call in sick because it's the perfect place to do so." Because yeah, I'm sure doctors get more sick all the time, more so than any normal person. Anyways, so a lot of this just dialogue back and forth here is being missed by me, and also it's really funny. Check it out with the movie. So, and I'm trying as best as I can try to fast track through a lot of this film. In all honesty, so we have Frank again going on and finding Captain McLean here, and the two of them are talking, and so Paco explains to McLean about the envelope that he found, and that he's assuming that probably a lot of the department is in on this weird money scheme, this take. And Paco is also trying to figure out if there's any department that is to go on and seemingly not be involved in this process of taking this money. And because also Paco is probably having interest in transferring again because he wants to avoid uh, working in these certain areas that are to be on the take. So Paco has asked McLean, it's like, well, hey, have you heard any places that don't do this so that way I can transfer there? But if feasibly, like, everybody is doing the same place everywhere, then, like, there's no point of me transferring. Because if anything, Paco is going to just move on and just be answering phone services for Spanish communication if that's what it takes. McLean goes on and is to mention that he has a friend named Roy Palmer, and he's an administrative officer, and uh, McLean will speak with him, and Paco takes that as a good enough answer because Paco can trust McLean. So at one point, Lori and Paco were on a bed together, and McLean calls him. So during the call, Paco records this, and McLean tells Paco that this department is squeaky clean. And while that's going on, Paco is recording this conversation so that way Paco is to be protected. So, and eventually Lori will call Paco out on, like, hey, why did you just record that? And Paco's like, hey, I'm trying as best I can to just protect myself. So this is already the conspiracy theory or the worry that people are going into at this point. So Paco does go on and transfer. And immediately he's met by these officers that want him to go on and go out and do something with him. And Paco is to also be introduced by other guys, Nate Smith, uh, and this and that, Jamie Morels, and so yeah, so we come to find that this guy, that specifically Frank is talking to here, is going to be the ringleader of this division. We're gonna find, I believe his name is Tom. Tom is gonna go on and be the one that is to tell Frank about this department and what they do, and fully explains everything to him fairly easily. So the two of them leave before Frank has the time to really sign in, and they make their way to this bar, and we have Tom and Frank grab this guy and want to arrest him. And the whole entire time, Tom and Serpico are talking here, or Tom. Yeah, let me backpedal here. So Tom goes on and finds this guy in this bar, pulls him out, and he starts haggling him for money, saying that he wants to get 300 out of him, and he'll make him get a lesser sentence. So we eventually will go on to have Tom state to Serpico that, yeah, he only got 2 bills out of him. He only got 200 out of him. So, after all is said and done. So, Serpico is fixing this car, and so Tom goes on and tells him everything. And says the organization of which that they're doing, which is to be these bagmen, which are to be these guys that end up having these severage packages for these guys. Tells him that they're going to get more money than they're actually getting. So, and like he tells this guy everything. Goes into this long speech. So, and also how Tom will go on and say that there are certain people that they go to because if you try to pull that stuff on certain people, it doesn't work. And Paco turns to Tom. It's like, man, you've gotten this down to a science, huh? You've gotten this down to find the perfect people that you can squeeze this money out of, huh? And Tom says, well, yeah, it's worth it. Tom goes on and says, like, well, yeah, like it's $800 a month. It's $800 tax free. And if anything, once you take this money, all the other guys will start to know that you're okay, that they can trust you. And also when you leave the division, you'll go on, you eventually, here's where he talked about the severance package. So Tom goes on and asks Paco to think it over. Are you in or not? And in turn, Paco goes on and tells Lori about all this. He tells her everything. And he's like, could you believe this stuff? Could you believe this nonsense? And we have Paco that mentions the rationale for why he'd always ever wanted to be a cop. Because when he was young, he had seen this incident where somebody had gotten stabbed, and nobody knew what was really going on. But if anything, the cops knew, and the cops went in and stopped what they were doing. And ever since then, that really wanted to have Paco become a cop because of the story. So, and then also how when the cops came in and Paco was in this crowd, how all of a sudden everybody was to start to part away like the Red Sea and make way for the cops. So I guess maybe just the way that looked just gave Paco like a way of like, man, like people really respected these people and it was amazing to see. So that's why I wanted to become a cop. But also Paco would say it's like, well, hey, now that I don't go on and I don't take this money, it seems like I'm a criminal that I don't take it. So at this point, Paco is to go on and be so tense that he needs to be rubbed down by Lori. And we get to a point where she goes on and she tells him a story about this king. This is to go on and remind me about the Noxuna Moon or whatever the god, the Cuckoo Kachu, whatever the Wolverine story, the Wolverine origin story, Noxuna, whatever the goofy character was that the girl goes on and tells Hugh Jackman's character in the Wolverine, Kue Kuatsu, that's what it is. And the name of it was the Wolverine. And like that scene here kind of reminds me of that Wolverine film that a lot of people probably hate or whatever. But Laura goes on and tells Paco this story about this king. This king did not go on and take this poison that drove him crazy, but everyone else in the town did go on and did take it, and they all got driven crazy. And so everybody in the town was to be insane except for the king. And so they were going on and saying the king was the only one to be the most unrational, most dangerous person because he was the one that wasn't insane like they were. So in turn, the king just went on, took this poison, become crazed, and the town all accepted him because he was as crazy as they were. So that is to go on and be the moral of the story of like maybe if everyone is crazy, maybe you need to be too. And so Paco ends up going on and taking in that story and maybe just kind of thinking things through. So Paco goes on and meets with a new partner. And immediately when he has this partner, he has a rat with him, or he has this mouse with him. And while the two of them are going on and they're talking here, Paco says that this is a mouse that goes on and is to specifically have found drugs or is to go on and be this mice sniffing drug guy or whatever. And the partner is to go on and look at Paco and just like, okay, whatever that is. And so the two of them, they leave. So we'll come to find out that that Paco's partner is to, I believe, be uh, I want to say it's either Rubello or it's to go on and be Cornsaro. Maybe it's not Cornsaro. No, it probably is Rubello. So if I've gotten that wrong, my apologies. There's a load of people here that I have to freaking memorize who all their names are. So let's go with Rubello. If I'm wrong, then you can correct me in the comments below if they state what his name is. So the two of them go into a car together, and the guy goes on to explain to Paco that he's a numbers collector, that he's going to go on again, be trying to just find these criminals. They're just walking about town and try to shake them down for money, and that's all he does. And it's prime time for them to go on and find somebody that they can shake money down from. So what happens is that Rubello finds one of the criminals just walking about town, and the guy notices this cop, and he starts running as fast as he can. Rubello goes on and is to put the reverse on his car and starts driving very fast backwards to the point where it's making things of the road very unsafe. So getting to the point where like cars are kind of doing their normal things, and Paco is telling this guy to look out because he's doing something dangerous on the road. Even to the point where this guy is consistently thinking because he's a cop that he basically could own the road, and that he's almost getting into car accidents for what he's doing because he just clearly doesn't care. Because all he cares about is getting this guy. So eventually, what goes on to happen here is they hunt this guy down to eventually make their way to a bathroom and a bathroom stall. Rubello breaks through the bathroom stall, grabs the guy, thrusts him into a toilet, thrusts his face into a toilet to torture this guy until he's willing to give them the money, of which that he will go on and do so. Then in turn, both Rubello and Paco go, I believe, to Rubello's home. Paco tells, I guess his name is Don here, my bad. So maybe I was completely wrong about this, or maybe I was right about this. Yeah, so I was right all along, I believe. Because, yeah, it says Don Rubello, so I was right. So, plus all these are really old pictures, it's really hard to tell. So, let's go with Don now. Paco goes on and is talking to Don here, and is telling him that he does not want to take the money. Don goes on like, well, okay, like I'll just keep the money safe for you and just keep it here unless you ever have a second thought about it. And so I'll keep the money here and that'll be okay, right? And Paco's like, sure. So Don goes on and wants a scotch, and Don is talking about the color TV and all the things that he's going to buy with this money. And so the next thing we see is again Paco making it to McLean. And and McLean is mentioning how he's notified Commissioner McLeany and stated everything that Paco had told him, and he wants to have Paco stay right where he is and continue to collect information. So that way Paco can be their eyes and ears. Again, this is going to go nowhere because it's going to take far too long for it to really get anywhere. So and supposedly this guy is going to reach out to Paco when the time is right, whenever that is. And so Paco's like, so when is that going to be? And McLean is like, I don't know. So like Paco's like, well, it could be never. Like he's just trying to be very vague so this guy can kind of do this whenever he wants, which will again probably be never. So Paco leaves and makes his way uh, to talk to some guys, and these guys would go on and be people that are to go on and break the news to Paco that Rubello, Don, uh, of course, Paco's partner, is to have transferred out. And that Paco will be working with a new bagman, and that his new partner will go on and be Frank, or no, uh, Al, Al Sarno. So Al and Paco are in this car together. Al goes on and he says that he is to be thoroughly guilty with going on and going and doing this, but he has to put his kid through college. He has this family, and so yeah, like when Al goes on and asks Paco about if he's on the take or not, or when Al is to go on and be getting this money and is asking like, okay, maybe I should give you this money now, and Paco is like, no, I don't take any money, and Al's like, you don't take any money, like what? So uh so yeah, so here's again Paco calling McLean. uh and it's kind of getting to the point now where like McLean, there's like all he can do, and Paco no longer understands, and so like I guess this is just goodbye between the two of them. So Paco goes on and speaks with Bob, and it's a situation where they're probably realizing that that top guys or bad cops have probably been cops too long, and that supposedly when we're thinking that anything is starting to get around of certain people have a certain bit of information, nobody's getting any information out whatsoever. So both Bob and both Paco are trying to figure out, it's like, okay, where can we go with this now? Who can we talk to now that is going to get this anywhere? So Bob goes on and states to Paco that he knows a guy named Jerry Berman who works with the mayor. And there's a possibility that them going on and talking to him will get this going somewhere. So, like, all the more reason for them to go on and talk to this guy. So, Paco realizes at this point, it's like, you do realize that we're now just talking to somebody, even outside the department now, to try to get this resolved. And it's like, well, that's right. That's what we're going to have to do. So, both Bob and Paco tell this assistant of the mayor, this guy, this story. And the assistant goes on to say that this story is dynamite. And he goes and has all these thesauruses of how excited he is by this story. And is talking about every plainclothes man in division, and maybe two lieutenants, and he's saying how incredible it is. Ooh, wow! Like, and Jerry is going on and stating how these people are pocketing like $250,000 a year, And so Paco is going on and telling Jerry, like, well, hey, man, like, are you going to bring this story up to the mayor right away, immediately? And because we've brought it to so many people at this point and they've done nothing. And as well as also realizing that Frank is being put in a very tough spot with all this, uh, because rumors are starting to spread, information is starting to get out, and so Jerry goes on and he makes a phone call, and both Bob and both Paco are kind of grinning a little bit, like, yeah, maybe we finally got somewhere. And the next thing we see is Paco making his way back to Lori. And Paco is telling Lori, hey, we'll see what happens. Like, let's just have a drink right now because maybe this is the saving grace we need. The two of them hug. And so, next thing we find, guess what happens? Jerry comes back to them, and it's like, yeah, about that. It seems like this isn't the exact perfect time to bring up this to the mayor. If anything, the season isn't right. Maybe in a couple months from now, it'll be better, and this and that. And Paco and Bob are realizing, like, yeah, this is just going to go nowhere. They're going to forget about it. And a couple of months from now, like, if anything, like, what a waste this was. So Paco and Bob leave, and Paco at this point is furious. He is so mad at this point, but he's trying as best as he can to bottle it in. But he is pissed. So Bob is knocking on the door, wanting to talk to Paco, and hoping that there's somebody else that they can go to. And at this point, Paco is like, dude, if we bring this to anybody else, 20 other people are going to find out what's going on here. And like 20 people are going to know that I said this. Like, no. Because eventually this is going to get out that Paco is reporting these things to these people. And once all the people know what's going on in the division that Paco is currently in, they're going to want him dead. They are. Because they're doing something criminal, so why not bump off Paco because he's the only one talking? So, and also Paco is to basically repeat everything that Jerry said about like how the guy had said, yeah, dynamite and beautiful, and so Lori is hearing this in the background and she's cringing and she's like holding on to herself for how long she's probably heard all this. And for how much she at some point will probably get to a avenue which that she can't take this anymore. Also, Paco is talking about how there's an assortment of crap just all over the place. So Paco ends up telling Lori, "Hey, clean this place up," and Lori's, "Hey, like don't take this out on me." And so eventually, this will probably lead to the two of them separating and breaking up. Sadly enough. So eventually, as Bob is to tell Paco that there's one way that they can still go, and at this point is to go on to the New York Times. And Paco's like, the Times, really? Like, wow, like that seems to be the most safest route. And that's where he mentions about the 20 people that are all to find out about it. So Paco does not agree with the times thing. Bob doesn't go into it. Bob doesn't seek it out. So we transition here to just see Paco just late at night feeding his bird, and Lori is telling him to come to bed, and just Paco cannot sleep. He's catatonic. He can't sleep. Why? How can he sleep? Justifiably. So Paco makes his way to all of these undercover officers around this tree, and it again comes up that they're to all go on, and 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 here's where they find out where Don had taken Paco's money and ran off, and that when everybody starts to find out, okay, well, if Paco's not wanting to take on any money, then we're going to separate it between all of us so that way we can all get an even share. Because Paco is say, hey, I'm willing to work with you all, but I'm not going to go on and I'm not going to take in part of the money. I'm going to tell all of you now that I'm not going to take this money. And he asks him, it's like, well, what did Don do? Because the money that was supposed to go to you, where did it go? And Paco goes on to explain that Don took it, and Don took it in a safe place and said that if he ever changed his mind, that the money will be there, and he didn't. So Tom states that, yeah, that's not what Don should have done, and so they were going to split up the money between everybody. So now Paco is at home with Lori, and he talks about, man, if all the police had just gone on and just be doing the morally right, good thing, the entire city would be cleaned up in a week, and there'd be no crime. And Paco is like, you know what? If I could just work alone, that'd be the thing. Uh, if I could just work alone. Further and further, Lori finally breaks and is to tell Paco, it's like, dude, you've been saying this over and over and over again. All the time you've been saying this. So getting to the point to where she's honestly just tired of hearing it. Like, we've gone on, like, I've been in my own personal situations where there's some people who will just kind of say the same stories over and over and over again to have it just be like, okay, I've heard this story. I can tell you how it goes because you said it so often. And yeah, like, it's just like, I understand that people just want to talk about things, but like, if I've heard this story 30 times now, like, I've kind of gotten tired of hearing it. But anyways, so uh, Lori goes on and is like, you know what? How about we just get out of here? How about we go to a movie? How about we do something? And Paco's like, how do you think I can just go to a movie right now? Uh, like, if they knew, they would kill me. Uh, do you know that? And here's where Lori chimes in about him being a catatonic, or that he goes on to explode the way he does, and Lori can't stand it anymore. And asking if Paco even cares about her anymore. And Paco goes on to say, like, well, maybe you should leave me then. And Lori's like, well, I've thought about it. And Paco goes on to say he hates his job, and Paco is to say that maybe she should leave then, if that's really what she wants. So, in between, there's a lot of kind of paraphrasing here. I'm trying to minimize, and I'm trying to get this out as quickly as I can. And I'm almost forcibly needing to wrap this movie up, or this review anyways, because it's far too long, and it is longer than I thought it would be. So, Paco ends up getting intel about there going on and being a guy that he could be watching over. So Paco goes on and is watching this one pipe. There seems to be a guy who ends up putting a certain thing in a pipe and walks away. Shortly thereafter, there is another guy who goes on and takes something out of the pipe. And when finally Paco is to confront this guy, here's where the wallet comes out. And this criminal is to try and pay off Paco. And Paco's like, no, I don't take payouts. I'm going to arrest you, and I'm going to bring you to jail. So Paco goes on and states to the guys behind the counter that he has booked this man, and then he leaves to go out because he has something from his car that needs to get due. Paco goes back into the police station and finds that his criminal is not by the clerk. So Paco ends up asking, "Hey, where is my criminal? Where's Consaro?" And they say it's like, "Well, the officer Smith took him upstairs." So all of a sudden, when Paco makes his way up to see his guy that he's booked, they're all going on, they're all sitting around, they're telling jokes, and Consaro had stated that Paco looked like some just junkie and didn't know he was a police officer. So they're all laughing at Paco's expense, and Paco is kind of upset at this point because of these guys all having a laugh. So Paco goes on, grabs this guy, thrusts him into a jail cell. Tom goes on. Wait. I think one of the undercover officers goes on and tells Paco, "Hey, why are you going on and treating that guy so badly? He's good people." And that's what sets, honestly, Paco off. He goes on, takes this chair, thrusts it into the ground, it breaks, and he goes on to take this piece of paper, and he goes and he's on this typewriter, and he writes to fill out this report. So Paco is talking to McLean, and he's telling him at this point, I need to get out. I can't take it anymore. Like, put me back in uniform. Like, do whatever you need to do. I'm freaking out. I can't wait for this guy's, for Delaney's call anymore. Like, I've played their game long enough. So And McLean is telling Paco, it's like, well, did the commissioner ever get a hold with you? No, he couldn't be bothered. So, McLean goes on and tells Paco that he's been to an outside agency and that he'll go to more if he has to. And Paco says, what outside agencies? And wait. Uh, I think Frank goes on and say that he's tempted to go to outside agencies. And McLean goes on and be like, well, hey, like, you don't go on, you do that. If anything, like, we wash our own laundry here. So and the two of them consistently talk about outside agencies and about how Paco should not go on and do this, should not go on and like. But either way, like Paco's gonna get the worst end of it either way. So Paco goes on and meets up with Deputy Chief Inspector Delaney. Or no, wait. Paco first talks with Inspector Palmer, and Inspector Palmer tells Paco that Deputy Inspector Delaney and Inspector Gilbert are here to see him. Paco ends up telling, eventually, Inspector Palmer, hey, why have you gone on and outed me that I'm talking to these people? It does not look good. So, Inspector Palmer goes on to ask Paco why didn't he go on and come to them first? Why did they go, or why did he have to go to Chief McClaney about all this? And Paco says, is like, well, hey, I didn't know who to trust. And if anything, like, a division should not go on and investigate itself because it'll just go nowhere. And we would go on to have the Inspector Palmer. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of true. So eventually it comes up about the outside sources, and they start to ask him where exactly he had started to go on and start to look into things. And Paco won't reveal that information. He just won't. So we would go and have these men who just had gone on to talk to Paco make their way to the mayor. And eventually they'll go on to ask the mayor about McClaney on if he had told him anything about this. And the mayor is, as much as possible, trying to not say that he heard anything, because of course he doesn't. He wants to just not to admit to anything. So, also, the mayor is going on and telling these guys that they can do their own investigation. So, eventually they go on and they do so. Paco is to give these guys all the information that he can possibly give them, and it never seems to be quite enough. that the guys go on and ask Paco about locations of people getting bribes, and Paco's like, when is enough enough? Like, I've given you guys 36 different locations of all people getting paid off. Uh, like, what is stopping you from doing this? Like, if anything, like, what is left to get signed, sealed, and delivered here? Like, I've given you so much information on a freaking platter. Like, so eventually, like, what they really do want is they want Paco to testify of all this, and he won't do it. Like, he doesn't want to be the face of this because, again, he wants to be a cop after this, and no one will trust him. So here's where Paco again um, states that he's probably just going to end up getting transferred again to another place. So Paco ends up going on to yet another division. And at this point, they're starting to find out that Paco is to be the guy who's squealing on them. So Paco is in a locker room, and guys are patting him down to try to find if he has a wire on him. And Paco goes to these guys that he's been talking to tell him, hey, they're now patting me down. They don't trust me now. Like, like, so Paco is going on to meet up with DA office people, and so further and further, this investigation just continues here, just continues. So, and again, Paco is still admitting that he won't testify. So Paco makes his way home to find out that there's a note where Lori is just ending this relationship. Paco goes to this public place, and Paco is to tell Lori, it's like, well, hey, why did you come here to try and talk to me? And Lori's like, well, I thought if you go to a public place, at least you'll shout less. So Paco goes on and tells Lori, I'll shout everywhere. But Paco's like, okay, I'll sit down, I'll talk to you. So eventually he sits down with her, and he hears her out. And the two of them are back and forthing. So Paco goes on to tell Lori that, like, you're talking to a man that's going to be the future husband of your kids, and your well, your husband and the future father of your kids. And that's what I was trying to say there. I got a little confused. And Lori says, like, well, hey, you know what, if I do come back to you, like, yeah, you're saying that now, but if I come back to you, will you ever say it again? And Lori says, it's like, well, you're trying to fight for something, and that's good that you're willing to do that, that you're fighting for something right, but it's also torturing yourself by doing it. And Paco asks Lori to stay with him And Lori leaves, and Paco realizes that he needs to pay her tab. So he throws $20 and he leaves, telling them to keep the change. Paco chases after Lori and asks her what is she doing. And Lori tells him that she's walking away. It's finished. The two of them are done. So now, here's where we get Chief Green involved. The guy who is to, of course, be seen in the early parts of this movie, and we had no understanding of why he was to go on and be involved in this film up until this point now, finally. So, Chief Green is working with Paco on this case. And Chief Green is telling Paco, hey, don't do any of that no testifying bullshit on me. And Paco ends up telling Chief Green, it's like, hey, I know your reputation. And maybe if this investigation was done differently, maybe I'd feel different about testifying, but I don't. Plus, also, considering now Chief Green is coming here well after the fact, like years after this whole thing has been going on, yeah. Like, Paco is realizing how this is going nowhere, and for Paco to want to testify and is still going nowhere, yeah, it's just putting Paco in much more danger. So, so yeah, uh, so Chief Green breaks it to Paco that he's going to testify. Uh, even though Paco is wanting to protect himself. So Paco goes on and starts practicing at the gun range shooting, knowing that his life is going to be put in danger here. And so Tom goes on to start talking to Paco. And Tom is going on and telling Frankie, hey, what are you going to tell the grand jury? Suppose they ask you about who's taking money. Like, what are you going to tell them what you know? And Frank is like, well, I don't know. It's like, well, you do know, Frankie. Tom goes on and tells Paco, it's like, well, hey, I don't want to see anything happen to you, but you got to understand, a lot of people could get hurt here. And I'm not saying anything is going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. I mean, there's a lot of ways. Nobody has to take a shot at you, but you can not be. People cannot be there for you when they need them to be. Somebody could pull out a gun. They look the other way. You could get shot. Yeah, like maybe you should not go on and tell the grand jury what's going on here. So, like, this is kind of like a thinly laced threat, and Paco is to go on and eventually tell Tom, it's like, thank for the information. And Tom's like, well, you, Frank. So, Now we get to the grand jury. And so they're going on and they're reading back what Frank had just said. And we have Paco on the stand here. And Paco has given his testimony. And the court is now going to be adjourned until 10 o'clock in the morning. At some point, they're going on and having the DA talk to Paco about him not giving up every bit of all information. And so let me pause here for a second. So the DA goes on and talks to Paco here as I was trying to surmise what exactly is going on in this dialogue that has any real importance to try to skim this down as best as I can. So the DA is talking with Paco here to tell him about, like, why not bring up any number of any other areas that have been affected by this? Why not go on and tell your whole story? And the DA goes on and tells Paco, like, well, yeah, out of all this, you're going to end up getting a gold badge once you go on and you accomplish all these things and testify and whatever, what have you. And Paco turns to the DA. It's like, well, yeah, now that's terrific. That's good. Maybe this is what it's all about. Maybe I should just take my gold shield and forget it. And the DA is like, well, yeah, I know you've been through a lot. And Paco's like, man, I'm a marked man in my department. For what? That I've I've already arranged for a transfer to where? China? Yeah, there's nowhere that Paco can go where he'll feel safe at this point. And that whole China line is just hilarious. Because, yeah, there's nowhere for Paco to go. There's no one that's going to go on and not know his name after going to this grand jury and blabbing at this point. So, Paco is to go on himself and order a very specific gun. So, the DA is going on and talking to the mayor, and Paco is going on and making his way into another department. And cops are going on and they're asking Paco if he had gone on and blabbed about cops taking money. And this is where there's a knife drawn on Paco, and he drops the guy and he whips his gun out and is to be thrusting his gun in other cops' faces, telling them not to move as he walks away. Paco goes on and he meets with his superior. And it seems that his superior is going to go on and seemingly be the only one that is going to be willing to work with Paco. Because this guy, it seems, is to go on and appreciate that that Paco is to do what he's doing. And so this guy goes on and tells Paco, hey, if no one else is going to work with you, then I will. And that's inevitably what ends up happening. So and he says his name is Lombardo, so that's his name here. So the next thing we see after this is that Paco and Lombardo are going on and noticing a bunch of men that are lookout guys, and they're going to want to try to break in to an area. So what they do is they climb up this fire escape. They climb up this building, and then they realize that they have to jump from one rooftop to the other. So both of them go on and try this, and they accomplish it. And Lombardo kind of falls on his ass, and the two of them get down this fire escape and fall on this one guy. They get this trash can. They break through this window, and they find out that all the people are going on and putting a torch to the place. So Lombardo and Paco are grabbing these guys, trying to squeal out information. And this guy is talking about how he just paid off the borough this morning, and that these guys should not be going on and hassling him for anything. So Lombardo goes on to ask this guy, well, who did you pay off in the borough? Uh, and then the guy doesn't say what his name is. And so Lombardo is like, who did you pay? So both Lombardo and Paco make their way uh, to yet another guy sitting on a desk. Good God, is this movie taking forever to break down? And this guy ends up being a guy that was actually in the credits to, I guess, be uncredited. Uh, it's a guy named, or no, wait, he's in the credits. Galara, or Gal, Ar, Galar, Galaler, Galaler. Man, this name is okay. It's hard to pronounce. So I'm gonna go with Galaler. Galaler. So, uh, so this guy goes on and he talks to Lombardo and Paco about protecting the image of the department and Commissioner Delaney, and if anything, they realize uh, that again these people are just trying to protect themselves. So at this point, we finally just get Paco that calls Bob and says, "Hey, I want to talk to you." So the two of them get in a car together, and Paco tells Bob, "Is like, hey man, we're gonna go to the New York Times. Like, I'm probably gonna die soon. This story's never gonna get out. So like, let's go to the New York Times. Let's do it. Like, in case something should happen to me, at least this story will get out." So it's like, okay, all right. So the next thing we see is Paco, Bob making their way to Lombardo, and and asking if he's going to be in on with them. And Lombardo is like, "Yeah, I'm in. Like, I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. 100%, I'm with you." So the next thing we see is that Bob and Paco are buying all the newspapers they can because of this story. So they're at this point really happy that they've put this story out, and it seems that it's going to go somewhere, that they're going to finally do something because the story has now leaked. So now we go on to have a number of news coverage on this, and people are finally going on to definitively say that they're going to put forth the effort to finally get this resolved. So Lombardo ends up giving Paco some information that he's going to narcotics. And Lombardo tells Paco, "Hey, you be careful because you might get hurt there." And you could probably end up getting set up. So Paco again goes on and he goes to the shooting range. The next thing we see is Paco getting a cop flashing his badge, bringing him in to his car, and this guy starts talking to him. After he pats him down, thinking that he has some wire on him. This cop goes on and mentions that the $800 that some other places get a month is chicken feed compared to what he gets. And he says that what he gets is 40,000 and 120,000 split 4 ways. And that's serious money, and with that he doesn't F around. And tells Paco, it's like, "Hey man, you get the message? Good. Now get the out." So I guess that was probably going to end up being Paco's partner, but or somebody that he was going to work with, or just somebody in his division, narcotics or something. But yeah, I guess Paco didn't exactly work with that. He ended up working with a guy named Detective Partner. Coincidentally, Detective Partner, the guy who eventually Paco works with and talks to the guy with sunglasses, and this is actually towards the end of the movie, thank God. Detective Partner had also worked with Al Pacino, this same actor, in Scarface, and it was kind of interesting to see him again here. So Detective Partner is going on, and he's in his car talking to this guy with the sunglasses, telling him, "Hey, if you see anything suspicious, you should probably go on and wipe your sunglasses, and then we'll know to come in and bust these people." So Detective Partner is with Paco and is telling him in the car, because there's a number of cops in there. But Detective Paco tells, Detective Partner tells Paco, "Hey, you go up there first, and we'll be right behind you." And Paco's like, "Well, hey, why do I need to go up there first?" And Detective Partner is like, "Well, I don't have the clothes for it." And Paco's like, "I'll take you shopping." So we see Paco that goes in there first, and he makes his way into the area, and goes down these flight of stairs and eventually is to see this transaction happen. And Paco goes on to see some of the cops making their way into the building. Paco lets the guys know that he was to be a witness to the transaction. It's these specific guys, arrest them, and then go inside and bust the people inside the building. Paco goes on to get the door open, but not open enough. Because eventually, when they realize it's cops, these people close the door on these people and try to push it closed. Paco luckily can get his foot inside and half of his body inside the door, and he's like back and forthing, just stuck here as he's trying to squeeze through the door. Desperately trying to tell the other officers to, hey, you want to help here? You want to do something? Like, I'm struggling here. And they, of course, will not lift a finger because it's Paco. So, what ends up happening is on the opposite end of the door, the criminal side of the door, we have one of the men whip out a gun and fire onto Paco's face. Paco falls out of the door, and then the officers act. So now here's where we go back to seeing Paco. He's in the hospital, and we have Paco's parents making their way into the hospital, trying to figure out what happened to their son. So we have a doctor that comes out to specifically talk to Paco's parents, let them know that he is expected to make a full recovery, but if anything, there's going to be certain problems. Uh, that'll that'll linger for him probably forever. But he's at least alive. His parents go on and see Paco, and we have Chief Green that goes on to see Paco and starts talking to him. Paco tells Chief Green get those patrolmen away from his room because he doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust the patrolmen. He trusts Chief Green, but doesn't trust the patrolmen because they'll probably might be the ones that'll probably kill Paco here. So Paco tells Chief Green, "Hey, read my fan mail." Chief Green starts opening up these gift cards, and they're horrible. The first one reads, uh, "With best wishes for a slow death." That's the first one. The second one, "Hope you're soon over your hospital stay, feeling stronger and healthier with every new day. Then you can die, you scumbag." Wow. So so uh here's where finally Chief Green ends up going on to give Paco the gold shield and states that everyone involved uh, in that whole thing will get some award of some kind. And so when Paco ends up getting the shield, he asks Green, "What's this for?" And he says that it's very funny. Like, did I get this shield because I'm an honest cop? Or for being stupid enough to be shot in the face? Uh, Tell them you can take this badge and shove it. I don't want it at this point. So now some more time has passed. The doctor has talked to Paco and tells him that he will probably have to be stuck on leave for a couple months now, and that there's going to be probably no hearing in his ear for quite a long time now, and that there's still two bullet fragments still lodged in some bone of his face, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, also stating that there's going to be some dizziness, and there's going to be a number of other things that Paco is just going to deal with for the rest of his life, but he'll, in general, be okay. So, Paco is getting picked up by Bob, and the next thing we see is Paco going on and making this statement, and all these people are hearing him out. To where this will go on in order to ensure they do something about this. So Paco at this point is going to go on and be doing this like press conference almost style of speaking out. So that way he can make again this statement as well as also uh, probably at this point be done with being a police officer. So Paco goes on and he makes his way back home and is to seemingly it looks like it looks like he's living with Chief Green. That's what it looks like. And Paco ends up taking a drink. He is to go on and be with his shaggy dog. And they say lastly, because this is the end of the film, Frank Serpico resigned from the police force on June 15th, 1972. He is awarded the Medal of Honor for uh, bravery in action. Uh, Serpico is now living somewhere in Switzerland. Yeah, like completely left the country, which makes a lot of sense. So that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna get that out of here. I know how long this was. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I had no idea where to go with. I didn't know what to say, so that's the problem with me going on and watching a movie and then not quite figuring out where to phrase things, as well as also me trying to push to try to get this video as short as possible, and it's not short enough. But regardless, there was a lot of stuff that I probably didn't need to say, or I just should have just kept pushing to try to get this done and over with. But regardless, this is the take you'll get. If anything, I'm just happy that at least this is freaking done now. So, with that said, I hope that this video will go somewhere. I really hope it does, because I'm like, man, like, some of these movies are very hard to break down, and then on top of that, to just see that there's no interest in them is just like, well, at least maybe someday it will. Maybe someday it'll do well. Because yeah, it seems that a lot of these are very slow traction to do anything. And even the ones where I've seen that it's like, oh, it's had prior success, that's not always to be the case because of how just unsure people are for when I upload things, as well as also for what can appeal to people the most. And yeah, so plus, still not really good at this. Still not finding the best course of action about doing things. But I'm just going to keep reviewing anyways. Hope for the best. Get the heck out of here so I can go on and do a number of other things to grind away to hope to eventually get certain items that eventually will help me to do thumbnails in the future. Yeah, like I the one thing about me here is to probably be the reason why I'm to be very open through a lot of the end of these things is because most of the time I don't think everybody watches the whole thing. But also, I'm gonna try to be very open because, like, for me, like, just the everyday grind of doing what all I'm doing is starting to become a lot. But I'm gonna keep trying to do it, hoping that it's gonna mean something someday. Uh, but it probably won't. Hope it'll be worth it at some point. Because I question every day whether it is or not. I question every day uh, if I should keep doing this. But I always also rationalize in my mind that I enjoy it, that I keep wanting to do it, and that has to be my most convincing thing. Is just like maybe I should just do it just to have something to look forward every day to doing, or maybe I should go on and keep hoping that this will go somewhere. But until that time comes, I'm still going to, I guess, be here to keep trying to do this. There were certain times of certain days where I'm just like, I want a effing break. Even though there are certain times where I do take like a week away from this, or I do take days away. Or you can kind of see me do things every other day, but I'm also still doing a number of things while I'm gone. So there's never a real true like clean break of me not doing something. Um, I never not get those kind of days. Uh, and I also say that because there are certain recent days where it feels like I've been uh, putting too much on myself, where like I am like really breathing heavy, and like I'm just having problems just kind of doing my normal day-to-day stuff because of just how much that I've just compiled on myself to just do every day. And yeah, it's getting hard. It's getting hard, but I'm gonna try to keep doing it regardless of what happens. I'm gonna try to keep doing it. So with that said, thank you for watching this. I appreciate you taking the time and hearing me out at some point of this video, even if it is X number of seconds of it. I don't care. Like, at least you took the time to watch this video, because I do appreciate it. So, with that said, let's go on and let's have this be an uploaded thing. So, thank you for watching. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.